Hi everybody, it's Matt here from pianoblog.com. Today we're going to talk about posture. Posture is a pet topic of mine. For those of you who have taken my technique lessons, which there's a link in the description, I talk quite a lot about posture, and I'm just going to give you a couple pointers today, and also a really easy trick if you find that as you're playing or you're practicing, you kind of revert to a posture that's maybe not so healthy, or have some sort of tension issue that you kind of revert to slowly as you're playing and focusing on other things. So I'll give you a quick little trick that helps with that. As you read stories of pianists, professional pianists, you find that they start to become very finicky, at least some of them, over the height of their bench, because they're just obsessed with optimizing how they feel at the piano, or at least what they think they ought to feel like at the piano. There's a funny story where Horowitz was playing a concert, and he kind of came back off stage after his first piece, and Franz Mohr, who was his piano technician, a very famous piano technician for many years, who would travel with him and take care of his famous Steinway. He came backstage, Horowitz came backstage and said, "I need you to go out and just raise the bench, just like a little bit." And Horowitz was just so flustered because his bench height was just a little bit off. And not everyone's like that, but there are many pianists who are the same. We've all seen Glenn Gould, how he takes a very unusual, very low posture at the piano, and there are others who would just really obsess over their bench height and things like that. So one of the things you do notice is that across many pianists, everyone seems to have a different idea of what the best way to sit at the piano is. So everything that I like to talk about with all of technique, but especially regarding posture, there are many exceptions to the rule. Everyone's body mechanics are different. Everyone's technique is different. And so what we try to do as teachers normally is at least set you on the right path, because while there are many variations to how you might sit or the type of technique you might have, usually for most people, 99% of the time, there are things that tend to work better. Horowitz is a great example. If you watch him play, he would do these things with his pinky that just looked like there's incredible tension, and then it would sort of dart out whenever he needed it. And almost any piano teacher on the planet would have a heart attack if they saw students do that, but that's kind of how Horowitz played. And no one can look at someone like Horowitz and say, "Oh, your technique was awful." Of course, it was quite the opposite. But those are kind of exceptions to the rule, and so that doesn't mean that all of us should be going around tensing our pinkies up. So let's talk about posture, just some of the basics of posture. I'm not going to go too into detail, but I do in my free technique course, like I said, is linked below, so you can check it out. Here are some things I look at when someone's starting with me at the piano. The first thing I look at is bench height. And there's some variability here, but when you're sitting at the bench, if you're sitting kind of in a nice, upright, relaxed position, you want your elbow to be at or a little bit above the height of the keys. And what I really look for here is a lot of people, if they're just sitting on whatever chair is around, they'll be going like this, so that there's actually a slope upward in their forearm when they're at the piano. So the first thing I look at is I'm looking at the relationship of the elbow to the keys. And this angle that I have so that you can kind of see me is actually not the best for this, but if you take a picture of yourself or a video of yourself directly from the side when you're seated or playing at the piano, you'll get a good sense, and you might not be sitting exactly how you think you're sitting. Sometimes it's surprising to people when they do that. So that's the first thing I look at. The other thing I look at is the bench in relation to the piano. And so right now my bench is scooted in a little bit closer than I would normally sit because I'm talking to you. But normally I would be sitting on the front half of the bench, not kind of lounging back on the back half, but sitting on the front half of the bench, far enough away so that when my hands are up at the keyboard, my elbow is not behind my torso. It can be, for some people, it could be just a little bit in front of the midline of the torso, and for others a little more. So you want to be high enough so that you're about at the level of the keys or a little higher, and you want the bench far enough back enough far back enough so that when you sit on the front half of the bench and you're here in a nice relaxed neutral wrist position, that your elbow is not back here. Now, a lot of times what I see is people will come up to the piano, kids love to do this, and they'll just grab the bench and they'll scoot it way in, and then they'll be like, all right, I'm ready. Now, that can work if you're playing one at a time, but you're going to find as you get to more and more complex music that this is really limiting, because you're kind of scrunched in here, hitting the sides of your body. You don't have very good mobility. So you definitely want to be back like this. Okay, hopefully you can sort of see the difference in that posture. For little kids, if your feet can't reach the ground, you can put something under the feet. So dangling feet can really throw you off balance. And what I try to do is I tell students, you want to have a little bit of weight on your feet. Okay, so it's not just that you're kind of balancing here like this. You want to have a little bit of weight on the feet. And I sometimes say, you want to have enough weight on the feet that if you had to escape the piano lesson and get up really fast, that it wouldn't be too hard just to stand up like this. Okay, it's not a lot, but you just a touch of feeling that like I'm going in this direction here. Not a ton though. Okay, so elbows, distance from the piano, height so that you're in line with the keys, and then just a nice sitting up nice and straight with relaxed shoulders. So those are some basics. Again, I talk about those in my lessons in a more extended manner, but something that you can think about if you're approaching the piano. Now, a lot of times what I'll see is that people will get the right posture, and then as they're playing, or as they're practicing something, they'll kind of revert. And so a lot of times I'll be teaching, and then I'll just see someone kind of like scoot in without even thinking about it. Or if someone has a trouble with shoulder tension, they'll be playing, and then their shoulders will inch up and up and up. And this is very common. It happens to me. It happens to everyone. And there's a really easy trick for this. If you find that you have a recurring problem, or if you just want to work on your posture in general, just take a piece of scrap paper, and on it, just write the problem down. So if your problem is shoulders, just write shoulders. Put it right there so that you see it all the time. The reason that these problems don't correct normally is that we get focused on something else, and then after 20, 30 minutes of practice, we're back in our bad habits. So you could just write posture if you're just working on your posture, and I would just keep it here at the piano. So every single time you sit at the piano, you think, all right, I got to check my posture, the height, how far back I am, etc. And the same thing, with shoulders. As you're playing something and you're getting more and more tense, okay, gotta kind of consciously relax my shoulders. And you'll find that if you have this here and you're just kind of seeing it all the time, you'll consciously do it until it becomes habit. Something that I like to write here is simply chill, because sometimes as I'm practicing, I'll get a little bit intense or a little bit kind of tensed up, or kind of a lot of nervous energy that I have, and that can affect how I'm approaching the piano. So just to kind of consciously remind myself, hey, relax, take a breath, work on this step by step. It doesn't have to all be at once. That's very helpful. That's not even really a posture thing, so you can use this trick for other things. This is a good example, by the way, of that. The most helpful things don't always have to be the most complex things. This is a very simple thing to do. It's almost absurdly easy, and it works really, really well. So try it out. I hope you found this helpful. If you haven't thought about your posture and how you approach the piano, start doing it, because you're going to find that it really helps. There's a lot of variation, like I talked about, but this is a really good starting point. And if you like this sort of content, make sure you check out my free lessons. I've linked to my free piano lessons and my technique lessons below this video. And please like and subscribe to the channel. That means a lot to me. And click on the bell icon so you get notified when I post new videos. And I'll see you next time.